Welcome back to a new video brought to you by the Spadone project. Here is Nick, Julian and Adam from Landsknecht Emporium. We got the chance this week to stay all together in Switzerland, in Lucerne, at Julian's place, and we got the chance for some measuring and, of course, visiting a lot of museums. We planned it some months ago, so from the beginning, I and Julian were meant to visit at least 3 or 4 museums, and in the end, while planning, it became like 5, 6 appointments over the week, so plenty of things to do. And in the meanwhile, we get in contact with Adam, and we decided to make this joint venture and get together and have the chance of letting him measuring with us some stuff, and was pretty good because on one side we had things to learn from him, and on the other side we had plenty of other experiences of measuring to share. But before going on, I guess, Adam, you want to present yourself, talking about what you do, maybe what kind of experience, how much experience do you have in the field of weapon making?
Hello guys, I'm Adam from Landsknecht Emporium. It's a company founded in 2017. We are focusing most heavily on messers, making a lot of sharps, different kinds of blunts, etc. We try to represent the average of the historical weapons we recreate, which needs a lot of research. As for experience from the crafting perspective, I started doing not too great knives when I was 11, which was 29 years ago now. Concerning hands-on research of originals, it's about 10-ish years.
Quite a lot of experience.
A long time, but much fewer pieces than you guys.
Well, of course, to everyone his own, right? Maybe you noticed the sword lying in front of us. Pretty cool. Adam, do you want to tell us something about it so that the viewer can get into the main part of the video?
Okay, this was originally a custom commission that sadly got cancelled when the customer's situation changed drastically. It's based on multiple sources from period art. Some parts are based on surviving pieces, and a lot of it is based on my then current understanding of the type. It's here because I spotted the Spadone project on Facebook doing pretty much the same kind of research I like to do, just at much higher numbers, and focusing pretty much on two-handed swords, which I usually don't. So it made sense when we ended up with an unsold custom two-handed sword to send it to the Spadone project for an actual expert review. If we got it right, if we got it wrong.
So what we see here is an early type of typical German Schlachtschwert, just from the first impression. It is very shiny. It has very nice accents of black and gold, I have to say. Due to the research for our book, a lot of details, like not from the same swords and not from the same piece of art, but different ones jump into my eyes and probably into yours as well. The pommel we have seen from a woodcut.
Yeah,
for example. Yes.
If I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, you are right. So also not just the pommel, but here we have a combination of 2 rings made as an S combined with a wider crosscut in S shape. In the case of Yorkbräu, we have just the simple S, so this part is missing, but
we have seen this type of crossguard on like Swiss Schlachtschwerter.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have other elements recurring in Landsknecht representation, especially woodcuts. One thing is the leather covering here. Of course, the wasted handle, that is more of a German language area thing, if I had at least to compare with Italian usual style. Then we have the blade. Here we had a little bit of debate with Adam because of the fuller. There's just one single fuller that goes from the ricasso and reach pretty close to the tip.
Here, and then we have a middle ridge, like a bit of a diamond section.
And again, we have at least one woodcut, right, Adam, that depicts something is not really clear. We need to check it again because on one version of the print, it might be like a spine on a diamond cross section blade. In another version, that might be retouched a bit, changed in the 19th century. It might be a fuller because we can see two lines getting really close and matching at the end. And then I do not know.
Yeah, otherwise, we said on originals, we don't see that combination necessarily. But Adam said, look at this woodcut. I said, And then we found the same woodcut. That is what you basically mentioned, where it looked like one middle ridge. And that we have seen very often on Schlachtschwerter. Today we saw a Schlachtschwert that had a long fuller.
Yeah.
Just
even longer than this. Yeah.
Even longer than this, but still the end was not like that. But in general, these are very rare types of even surviving swords. And it's more based on art. And there you can debate what you see, yes.
Absolutely. Also, many of the specimens we know for auction houses and some collections, some of them we can't even really say if they are originals or not. We did not have the chance to measure them personally, so it's still something open to debate. I wouldn't place an hard word on this.
No, absolutely not. Also, because it's still very functional and everything, there's no reason to say, we never saw this, it didn't exist. This could have very well existed. Just because we didn't measure it exactly this doesn't mean anything in the end. Yet.
A nice detail is the wood case underneath the leather wrap on the ricasso. That is something we found, I would say, every time we saw and measured a blade with this kind of covering, wood was underneath.
Yes.
And so this is the kind of details that make the difference between a good researched replica or not, even in cases like this where we put together different elements from different words. And another interesting detail is the finials here. We haven't found a specific hilt, again, crossguard with this kind of finials, so the matching of the double S, let's say, with this small ball, but we had the chance to see a bunch of weapon with this kind of decoration. 2 days ago, right?
Yes.
And was on a Katzbalge. Yeah. And we know of another 200 sword in Geneva, if I remember correctly, where this kind of decoration is applied.
And otherwise, the famous one from the Deutsche Historische Museum in Berlin.
Yes. In this case, Adam, though you followed a different approach for making them, if compared, for example, to what we have seen here in the museums.
The main difference is that I'm too much of a cupboard to leave the halves unsecured, because on originals these are just placed on top of each other, pinned on the very top, and if it misaligns, then it's misaligned. I silver soldered the halves together after forming them out of 1 millimeter brass, and then pierced them, and then added the file work, and only then at the very end have I pinned them. I have a very strong suspicion that the originals were formed with the halves fully finished. So make one half, pierce it, file it, make the other half, put them together, pin them, and hope that it won't look like this, which it sometimes does. On the other hand, on the piece 2 days ago, I think I might have seen some signs of soldering between the halves, which would be a first for me.
Okay. Anyway, I think that for a modern audience, I mean, a modern customer, having something that is a bit more sturdy is preferable, at least from their point of view. If you might sacrifice something on the historical construction to have something that is meant to last a bit longer, I guess it might be a good compromise.
Absolutely. You pointed out the wood underneath, but not what is on the leather that covers the ricasso. Here we have a dancing skeleton, typical motif for the Landsknecht period, and later on. He has a drum and like shamai or trumpet.
Yeah.
In his dancing, so a typical Totentanz depiction. Very nicely embossed, tooled in the leather. I really like it. On the other side, we can show that, I think, or shall we do it later? Yeah, turn the sword maybe. We see decorations that we, similar at least, see on surviving Schlachtschwert.
Yes, it is a losange motif.
Yes.
Even this week we have the chance to see one. I mean, it's not exactly the same. Maybe in some cases the pattern of the lines is a bit wider.
Yes.
In this case it's pretty dense, but I mean the idea behind it is there, of course.
And I would say, to our eyes, this looks probably nicer.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I went with the dancer motif, because, as you say, on the originals it's more often a lot more spaced apart. But as you also said, modern eyes tend to not find that as appealing. So it's again a bit of a compromise. I should have gone with like finger width, so like half the amount of lines.
On the other hand, I have seen similars on like scabbards and stuff, so definitely exists. It's not out of place or anything. Absolutely not an issue in any regard, not even from a historic point of view or something. I like it very much. And really to point out
The pommel.
Which...
Should I bring it closer?
Yeah, we have a bit of table left. Yes, that's fine. I can also support it a bit. You see it a bit closer, Nicolo?
Yeah, so again, we see a kind of pommel with this, I would say, twisted ray decoration in Yorkbroy representation of a Landsknecht. And for what concern the contouring here on the side, we have another decoration, again slightly made of these twisted lines with some engraving on them. And if I remember correctly, Adam, that part you took inspiration from something else, or was it from the customer request? Because I think on the woodcut is not visible the side of the pommel.
Yes, the side or even the actual cross section is not visible on the woodcut. It was a mix of our research and customer specification that we ended up with a discoid pommel for the sideband decoration, we went with this motif because we see loosely similar on the Cluny longsword and multiple Italian single-handers from roughly the same period.
And I see there's some kind of reinforced pin at the end. Is pretty wide. It looks like some kind of flower of clover. And I would say we have seen pretty small pins and also pretty wide ones.
Yeah, this is something where Adam and I talked about because it sprung into my eye. And he had a good explanation for it, that this is wider because normally we see them way smaller. But after the explanation and seeing how it's done, I think it's nicely incorporated. And maybe you want to point out why it's the way it is.
Yes, so here at the pin, a lot of originals have, for the actual shaft diameter that is then pinned, anything between 3 to 6 millimeters. And I heard some complaints that about the middle of that 5 millimeter round pin seems a bit too small and a bit too weak. And since this was a very special project, we really wanted to make everyone happy, including ourselves and including the customer. I decided to go with a way larger pin than that would have been normal. So there, the cross section that is then pinned was about 8 by 8 millimeters, considerably larger than the originals. But if anyone thinks that would fail in normal use, then I can't do much about it, honestly.
Yeah, no. Only when somebody does what we saw today, probably bashing with a hammer from the other side.
Yes, there the Pommel would fail first, because while it's very nicely gilded, which is done by one of our partners, it is actually 3 separate pieces of metal. The entire thing is hollow.
You just mentioned the gilding. Maybe you want to address that?
Yes, of course, for safety reasons, this is not fire gilt, because that is extremely toxic. It is gilded with modern electroplating, roughly to the same thickness as gilded watches tend to be gilded. It was also a very fun and challenging thing to do, because if it's just plain steel and you miss a file mark, you can always just go back and clean it up. Here we needed to be absolutely sure that whatever is on there stays there, because on a gilded surface I don't really want to apply a file.
Understandable.
And when was that? Yesterday or the day before?
I just wanted to say, in terms of gilded Schlachtschwerter,
yeah, we saw a good large couple. I really don't remember if it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Too many museums.
Yes, too many museums. It was yesterday.
Yes, those were obviously fire gilded, which meant that even after roughly 500 years, we still had large areas that retained gilding. It was lovely to see and handle them, and very stressful, to be honest.
Parameter-wise, like dimension, weight, point of balance, do we have the stats?
Yes.
Check them.
I'm rechecking them. Okay.
So our length is about 151?
Yes, 151.
Yes. So what we consider the start of what is Schlachtschwert.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are a bit shorter long swords, even with that type of crossguard, but this definitely puts it, not easy to carry. You choose that as your main weapon.
We don't even have the scabbard in this case.
Yes. Yes. The
weight.
The weight is 2.49 kilograms. So compared to what we saw in the past few days, it's relatively rather light. However,
not many were in that length. They were all mostly longer.
yes.
So it's absolutely in the range.
What I would say is, if we take in consideration some of the Italian Spadone of these decades, I mean, if we want to point out the first decades of the 16th century as a reference point, with this kind of length, maybe some centimeters more, but on the range of 150 or 160, anyway, we are around 2 kilos of weight. So in our experience, I would say some weapons tend to be a little bit heavier in comparison to modern replicas at the same, if we compare the same range of length.
It really varies because you remember we once had a longsword in Zurich that I asked you to take a picture with me. Similar crossguard even. That was about 130 long, but I still have the picture with the scale showing 2,430. And that was shorter than this. But this adds a lot of weight and stuff. And then we had two-handed swords about nearly 168 with 2.9 kilos.
Yeah.
So it's totally in the middle, fine. Not too heavy, not too light technically.
Yeah.
Especially when you have so much mass from the crossguard. Because this is all more metal. If you roll it out, how long would it be? Probably like this. Like
Yeah, especially the rings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of material.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Point of balance.
That is at 120 millimeters from the top of the cross.
So roughly here.
Here-ish.
Also in the range.
Yeah. Maybe we have found even sword with a shorter point of balance, but most of them are around 10, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, between 7 and 10 are the most.
Yeah.
But what we did measure was from, like, if you go extremes, 3 to 15.
Yes, I remember, for example, some Italian blades, they were towards 11 or something.
Yes, and later ones 15 even. Yeah. So also in the range. For my taste, I like it a bit closer to the guard, but still fine to wield. Like, has presence, good feel.
We will need to see how it moves.
How it moves, yes. That will follow soon, hopefully. It's sharp.
Yes, important detail.
Important detail. It's not a toy.
Yes.
So we will cut with it as well to see how it performs.
I hope it will do good.
Well, I guess so. With this point of balance, we can expect it to swing the right swing of the greatsword.
Yes. What else can we say? Crosscut width is
310 millimeters, so 31 centimeters from point to point.
yes, also quite in the typical Swiss range.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we are getting to some final conclusion on it. From my point of view, is a good mix of things that can be considered historical. So from the point of view of someone that wants a really cool sword, or if someone is interested in reenactment of pretty more than average level, personally I think this is way more than what I have usually seen in many events of Landsknecht reenactors. So, but way higher in level from many perspectives. And probably it's also fun to have it just for cutting test and spending some time with friends, cutting bottles, pumpkins and stuff. Is lovely, and even from the point of view of the statistics, we have seen that is on
Plausible.
the range. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your opinion?
I also like it. I was gonna say something similar like you did. Landsknecht is flamboyant. This is flamboyancy level over 9,000. I really like the craftsmanship on it. And as you pointed out, that we rarely see that type of swords in a period that is depicted or should be in the 1520s approximately. And we always see them running around with end of the 16th century swords.
Yep.
We die each time when we see that. It's such a pity. And here we have a really nice interpretation of mostly artwork, right plausible, nice accents, craftsmanship. Really nice sword.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Of course, the sword need a new owner now because the first one could not get it. So we are pretty much making the video to pinpoint this fact that is available if someone is interested. And of course, we want to underline that we are not getting any money for this review. It's just made out of will of networking. So we want to share information. We appreciate the fact that some manufacturers value as much historical research actually. So getting to the museum, getting the information, the data, checking the artworks. I mean, there's so many stuff around one can check. I think even one can just get to Pinterest and there's a lot of material. So this is high value put into the final product and is not seen much.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the reason doesn't matter after all. Is we want to show that there are options for cooperating, who has more time for research, who does this as a work and have the craftsmanship for making something like this. I wouldn't be able probably.
No, me neither.
Yeah. So I think it's just is a favor. We had fun. We spent time. We learned stuff from Adam when we were at the museum. I hope you learned something from us as well.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's fine to cooperating and making project bigger rather than just living in your own little room and doing everything alone. I don't know what you think.
Yeah.
So I think it's all. Adam, thank you for the time spent with us. We learned a lot over these days.
And thank you very much for the opportunity and to Julian for the hospitality. It was great.
A pleasure.
Okay, just to conclude, for every question regarding the specific weapon, you can contact the Landsknecht Emporium directly. So just write a PM to them on Facebook. I don't remember if you have an Instagram page as well.
Yes, we do. And we also have email at info@landsknechtemporium.com.
Perfect. If you have more questions about this kind of weapon from the point of view of history, so maybe sources, woodcuts, artworks, anything regarding a more wide perspective, you can just leave a comment on the video and we will answer. Remember that you can subscribe to the YouTube channel to get the future video notification. And remember that we have a Patreon page, so if you want to contribute to our more usual kind of research, you can subscribe to the page. You find the link in the description. And as always, just some euros per month. You get an update of behind the scenes of the project, and you help us with books, instruments, traveling more, visiting museums, all the kind of stuff that bring on this project. And that's it. Thank you for watching the video, and we see you with the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.